Yes.
What you're saying, I can't speak. What you're saying with regards to your Uber shader is that you could have multiple shaders, definitions within a single shader file, definition, however you want to call it, but based on the naming selection or the way you call it, only that part which you want compiled and actually
Right.
put
So you
into
can
the
do
shader would be executed. But my question here is if I had 10 shaders but I only used one, would my memory usage be the one, or would it be 9 not used, one used?
be the one.
The one.
But only
You roll them all. I had to say that.
right. But you have if something, and then
Could,
W.
could you go back to your guard code there to explain that a little bit? Because I missed that. I mean, I saw it flash by. So what you're saying is the name,
Oh,
you did something with the name and you passed it in and you, like, how did you extract that data?
uh, which one is what?
Okay, you were saying our limitation is that we only have 4 arguments that we can pass.
Right.
But you said something about a name and then parameters baked in and then you lost me.
Oh, so are you seeing this now?
I'm seeing it.
Okay. So the shader source is just a string,
Uh-huh.
and so we can edit it in Lua before we build it.
Oh.
So you can just use normal string concatenation to bake in constants.
Just the part you want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting you. I've never done exactly what you're doing there. You're little. You guys, you're coding that doesn't match me.
So the upshot of that was that you could there's different ways of extending effects. Like you could add this into the shader, right? And if we never define this, this will never happen. Or, sorry, X. Oh yeah, W's there. But if we had this string just set aside in a variable, like this is a shader template block, then we could also append that template to a definition that we had before that was something like this.
You can tell a real Lua programmer versus me, because I'm like looking at that going, I can't remember. Is double bracket close quote or open quote?
Well, so this is an example where, say this was all in shader block, my shader block, and we would define it beforehand, and then attach our template to that, and then with that out of the way, this effect gets enabled and W gets multiplied by 2. Now, multiplying W by 2 isn't exactly an exciting feature, but you could enable and disable just different ways of doing something. Like here we want to apply it. I can't come up with an example now that I like in the heat haze effect, where I mentioned you could go between using a position or texture coordinates. You could switch that out. Just have a common block.
Are those run through a compiler first? Is that how you're getting your?
Yeah, the shader driver.
Compile type arguments.
The shader driver compiles it. So, or the GS.
When you have those little directives in there, that's how you're doing that. Is in compile time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's
like a hacks language. There's a lot of languages like that, but yeah, you couldn't do that directly through Corona. You'd have to compile that first.
It's a feature of the shader language, not
okay, cool.
So it's a lot like C. If you've
Okay.
ever used C. I think you mentioned.
Yeah.
Good old C.
Cool. Any other questions, anybody? Okay. Well, I think let's leave it there. That's quite a bit to chew on. So what I think, just to kind of recap, what I hear, and this is I'm recapping multiple weeks, not just what we talked about today, but what I hear is that that you can do some pretty powerful stuff with shaders. I mean, as the example that you saw, I mean, I thought that was a nice effect, pretty sweet effect. You can do some powerful things with shaders, and there are a bunch of prefab shaders that come in Corona, right? So you can access any one of those things. Well, all the math that we've been looking at isn't necessarily required because there are blur filters and all these other things in the Corona library. But if you want to create some custom stuff, then you can really dig in and create some pretty interesting effects. Sometimes there may be some math involved, just as you were just showing. I mean, you were clearly doing some math to figure out some values and then making calculations based on those values to get the ultimate effect that you wanted, which definitely seems to, would require knowing some math, either knowing it or Googling the heck out of it.
I did try to explain what each one does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I would definitely argue that your familiarity and your background probably provides you a level of, like you're saying things like, this piece of math isn't that interesting, and I'm like, I don't know what that piece of math is.
Yeah, this is definitely beyond the high school algebra.
Oh yeah,
level. That this is.
Yeah.
If you don't understand at least geometry and be able to use sine and cosine easily, this is.
Yeah, you kind of left me back. You left me behind at roll call. Charles here. And now I'm copying off somebody else's paper. So, but yeah, definitely some cool things. I just don't want people to think that you have to know these things in order to create some really cool effects. There's a lot of stuff that's included already, but knowing that you can dig under the hood and create some even cooler things is very important. And I'm sure, just like anything else, if you're at that point where you're like, hey, I want to move something 1 pixel to the left, and that, you are probably already in that zone to know enough to dig into it.